So assuming that we have local control of education again, where do you stand as far as on one end of the spectrum, the state being very involved in making sure that schools have plenty of money, are regulated really well, being very involved in public education, and on the other end of the spectrum, sort of a separation of education and state, where parents pay their own way for their children. I mean, where do you stand on the spectrum? How involved do you think they should be?
Well, that's a good question, because if we go back just 100 years or so, it was the small little communities that hired their teacher, and usually the teacher lived in the home of one of the families, and they were very much the community, and the parents created the educational process for their kids. And today we know that Utah's Constitution creates a state school board, who then decides a lot of the issues and things that take place for our education. My perspective is the first line of defense, and the ones who are supposed to have the most influence and the most decision in the education of their children is the parents. And at all times, parents' rights should be protected in being able to educate their children, and that they should have parental choice. Okay? Now the argument all the time is, well, somebody has to educate the kids that maybe nobody else is thinking about. We do. That's why we have public education. But that doesn't mean that one size fits all. And oftentimes that's the argument. If the kids want to go to all these other schools, then we're left with the kids that nobody's really thinking about, and then public education suffers, and that doesn't have to happen. Public education became very effective. My kids have gone to public school. My daughter graduated as a Sterling Scholar from AFI. And so what I'm concerned about is, I sent out, when I was running for this office before convention, I sent out the Department of Education budget from the legislature that shows where the money goes in education. I'm extremely concerned at the layers of administration we have in the state of Utah before we ever get to the classroom. And if we're going to be effective in educating kids, the money has to get to the teacher and the child in the classroom. And so as a legislature, I'm going to be looking at, why do we have a state school board? Why do we have superintendents? Why do we have districts? Why do we have principals? Why all of this before we ever get to that teacher that's writing on the chalkboard in the classroom for that pupil? That's my concern in the Utah education, is where's the money going, and is it being used effectively? I may find out that it is. I may find out that it's not. But I have some definite questions about what's going on. The other thing I do not agree with or support at any time is a federal mandate. We went through the No Child Left Behind. It was not beneficial. And now we're proposing some other issues that have federal money. And I think any time that we sell our right to educate our children and to determine what's taught, we put ourselves at risk. And that's not what the Founding Fathers intended. And so any national program that has federal money, and we know every time we take federal money, what comes attached? Strings, mandates, requirements. Kids are not cogs. They don't all fit in the same hole. Kids need to be educated according to how they learn, and I believe our teachers in our classrooms, or parents in their own homes, or in charter schools or private schools, they'll know how to do that best with their student. So I want as much control as locally as possible for that student, whether it's a mom teaching her child, whether it's a teacher in public school. That's where the control needs to be.